This is Top Accolade Global News Update. I am Soibifa Jackridge. Taiwan's top security official said he does not currently recommend President Tsai Ing-wen visit the South China Sea given the possible risks to her flight from interference by relevant countries, given China's military presence there. Both Taiwan and China claim most of the South China Sea as their own territory, but Taiwan only controls one main islet in the contested Spratly Islands deep in the southern part of the sea called Ituaba, which Taiwan refers to as Taiping Island. Some lawmakers from both the ruling and main opposition parties have called on Tsai to visit Ituaba before she steps down in May to assert Taiwan's sovereignty and view a newly renovated harbor that can take larger ships. Both her predecessors visited the island, but she has yet to do so while in office. Taiwan National Security Bureau Director General Tsai Ing-wen said the South China Sea had been highly militarized and the government must also consider how the international community would view such a trip. China has reclaimed land and built air bases and other military facilities on some of its islands, including those close to Ituaba, and regularly objects to U.S. Navy ships and military aircraft operating nearby in what Washington calls freedom of navigation operations. Ituaba has a runway long enough to take military resupply flights from Taiwan, which takes around 4 hours, but is lightly defended compared to the nearby Chinese-controlled islands. Chinese forces generally leave Ituaba alone. Asked about a lawmaker whether China had ever interfered with or followed Taiwanese Coast Guard or military aircraft around Ituaba, Tsai, who shared a common family name with the president, said it had happened. Australia will begin enforcing tougher visa rules for foreign students this week as official data showed migration hit another record high, which is likely to further exacerbate an already tight rental market. From Saturday, English language requirements for student and graduate visas will be increased, but the government will get the power to suspend education providers from recruiting international students if they repeatedly break rules. A new genuine student test will be introduced to further crack down on international students who look to come to Australia primarily to work, while the imposition of no further stay conditions will be used or on more visitor visas. The moves follow a raft of action last year to close off COVID-era concessions introduced by the former government, including unrestricted working hours for international students. The government at the time said rules would be tightened for students that could halve its migrant intake over 2 years. Australia boosted its annual migration numbers in 2022 to help businesses recruit staff to fill shortages after the COVID-19 pandemic brought strict border controls and kept foreign students and workers out for nearly 2 years. But the sudden influx of foreign workers and students has exacerbated pressure on an already tight rental market. Data released by the Australian Bureau of Statistics showed net immigration rose 60% to a record 548,800 in the year to September 30th, 2023, higher than the 518,000 people in the year ending June 2023. Overall, Australia's population rose 2.5%, the fastest pace on record, to 226.8 million people in the year to last year. The record migration, driven by students from India, China, and Philippines, has expanded labor supply and restrained wage pressures, but it exacerbated an already tight housing market where rental vacancies hovered at record lows and elevated construction costs restricted new supply. European Union leaders will on Thursday discuss a plan to use €1 billion in profits from frozen Russian financial assets to buy arms for Ukraine as they try to bolster Kyiv in its fight against Moscow's invasion. The bloc's 27 national leaders will also debate how Europe can do more to defend itself and boost its army industry, reflecting fears that Russia may not stop at Ukraine and the US may not be such a staunch protector of European future. For decades, Europe has not invested enough in its security and defense, Charles Michel, president of the European Council of EU leaders, wrote in his invitation letter for the summit. In a two-day summit in Brussels, due to start at 12:00 GMT on Thursday, the EU leaders will also tackle topics as diverse as the war in Gaza, the prospect of opening membership talks, Bosnia and farmers' protests. But Ukraine will top the agenda with President Volodymyr Zelensky joining the leaders via video link. EU leaders has voiced increasing alarm about the state of the war in recent weeks. The ammunition-starved Ukrainian forces struggling to hold back Russian troops and a $60 billion military aid package for Kyiv stock in the US Congress. The European Commission, the EU's executive body, this week proposed taking profits from Russian assets frozen in Europe after Moscow's invasion and transferring some 90% to an EU-run fund used to finance arms for Kyiv. The assets are frozen by EU Central Securities Depositories, mainly Belgium's Euroclear. Ukraine would also receive the 25% tax that the Belgian government puts on the profits. The Swiss National Bank cut its main interest rate by 25 basis points to 1.50% on Thursday, a surprise move which made it the first major central bank to dial back tighter monetary policy aimed at tackling inflation. The central bank, in the first decision since long-serving chairman Thomas Jordan, said he would step down in September, also reduced its interest rate on sight deposits to 1.50%. The move caught markets by surprise, sending the Swiss franc sharply lower against the dollar and to an 8-month low against the euro. The easing comes after Swiss inflation dipped to 1.2% in February, the 9th month in succession that price rises have been within the SNB's 0 to 2% target range, which it defines as price stability. The bank said that for some months, inflation had been back below 2% and thus in the range it equates with price stability. According to the latest forecasts, inflation is also likely to remain in his range over the next few years, it added. The SNB said it was taking into account the reduced inflationary pressure as well as appreciation of the Swiss franc in real terms over the past year. The SNB decision was the first in a busy day for central banks in Europe, with the Bank of England and Norwegian Central Bank also due to announce their latest policy moves. Economists expect no change from the Bank of England or from the Norges Bank. The European Central Bank is expected to make its first reduction in borrowing costs in June after it kept its interest rates on hold earlier this month. US President Joe Biden announced that $6 billion in student loans would be cancelled for 78,000 borrowers, bringing his administration's total student debt cancellation to nearly $150 billion. Biden, a Democrat, last year pledged to find other avenues for tackling debt relief after the Supreme Court in June blocked his brother plan to cancel $430 billion in student loan debts. The latest group includes public service workers like teachers, nurses, and firefighters who qualify under the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, created in 2007 to forgive student debts for Americans who go into public service. These public service workers have dedicated their careers to serving their communities, but because of past administrative failures, never got the relief they were entitled to under the law, Biden said in a statement. As of June 2023, about 43.4 million US student loan recipients had $1.63 trillion in outstanding loans, according to the Federal Student Aid website. Higher education debt has tripled since the 2008 financial crisis. Steep interest and hefty payments on these loans mean younger Americans struggle to buy homes or make other investments, and Democrats have pushed for U.S. government forgiveness for years. Republicans largely oppose such actions. Biden is seeking re-election in November and need the youth vote to help him win. I won't back down from using every tool at my disposal to deliver student debt relief to more Americans and build an economy from the middle out and bottom up, Biden said. That is the size of top accolade global news updates. You can follow us on our social media platforms as displayed on your screen. Happy Thursday.